The Fleet Admiral smiled as Earth burned. He didn't know about Mars. Zax adjusted his ocular implants as the brilliance of Earth's burning atmosphere threatened to overwhelm his vision sensors. The blue planet, now rapidly turning orange and black, glowed like a dying ember against the cold vacuum of space. His lipless mouth stretched into what his species considered a smile, though any human unfortunate enough to witness it would have described it as the stuff of nightmares. "Magnificent, isn't it?" Zax purred, his voice a grinding mechanical echo through the command deck's atmosphere modulator. "The birthplace of humanity. Their cradle. What did they call it in their primitive poetry? Ah, yes. Their pale blue dot. Not so blue anymore, is it?" Commander Vax-8, his second-in-command, clicked her mandibles in agreement. "The Supreme Collective will be pleased, Fleet Admiral. The humans have been a persistent threat to our expansion for far too long." "A threat?" Zax barked out what passed for laughter among the Kravax species, a series of sharp, staccato clicks that sounded like metal breaking. "Oh, Vax-8, you give them too much credit. They were barely an annoyance. Like, what do they call those tiny insects that buzz around their rotting food? Fruit flies? Yes, humans were the fruit flies of the galaxy, primitive, short-lived, and ultimately insignificant." The bridge crew, a collection of various subspecies engineered specifically for their roles, remained silent. They knew better than to interrupt the Fleet Admiral when he was enjoying himself, especially after a successful planetary extermination. "Still," Vax-8 ventured cautiously, "they did manage to destroy 3 of our scout ships last solar cycle." Zax waved one of his 4 upper appendages dismissively. "Luck. Pure luck. And look where their luck got them." He gestured toward the view screen where chunks of Earth's crust were now visibly breaking apart, the planet's core exposed and hemorrhaging molten material into space. "The Supreme Collective ordered their elimination, and we have delivered. Efficiently and thoroughly, as always." The Fleet Admiral turned away from the spectacular planetary destruction and moved toward his command chair, his 8 segmented legs clicking rhythmically against the metallic floor. Each step released a small puff of the methane mixture he required to breathe, creating a noxious trail behind him that the ship's air filtration system quickly processed. "Send the confirmation signal to the Supreme Collective," he ordered. "Message should read, 'Human threat neutralized. Earth destroyed as ordered. Awaiting further instructions. Add the usual codes and timestamps.'" "Yes, Fleet Admiral," responded Chular, the communications officer, her tentacles dancing across the gelatinous interface of her console. Zax settled into his command chair, feeling the satisfying click as his exoskeleton connected with the neural interface. A rush of ship data flooded his consciousness: system statuses, crew reports, weapon capabilities, and strategic analyses. "Oh, and Chular? Add a personal note from me to the Supreme Overseer," Zax added, his voice dropping to a lower register that indicated smug satisfaction. "Tell him I wish he could have been here to see it personally. The humans' final transmissions were entertainingly desperate." Chular's skin flushed a deep purple, indicating discomfort. Adding personal notes to official communications was unusual and potentially presumptuous. "Are you certain, Fleet Admiral? The Supreme Overseer rarely appreciates familiar communications." "Just do it," Zax snapped, his good mood momentarily darkened. "The Supreme Overseer and I have an understanding. I deliver results, he overlooks my eccentricities." The bridge fell silent again, save for the constant humming of the ship's antimatter engines and the occasional beep from various monitoring systems. Fleet Admiral Zax returned his attention to the view screen, watching Earth's final moments with the detached interest of someone observing a particularly predictable nature documentary. "How long until complete planetary disintegration?" he asked, almost casually. Science Officer Trex 92 consulted her readings. "Approximately 47 Earth minutes, Fleet Admiral. Our gravity disruptors have destabilized the planet's core beyond recovery." The chain reaction is proceeding as calculated. Excellent. Once disintegration is complete, have the fleet collect samples of the debris. The Biological Research Division always appreciates new human specimens, even if they're a bit crispy. Zax's mandibles clicked in amusement at his own joke. No one else laughed. Deep in the bowels of the massive Kravax flagship, in a section designated for biological research, a euphemism for the particularly gruesome experiments conducted on captured species, a lone human sat in a containment cell. Unlike the typical cells designed to hold humanoid prisoners, this one had been hastily modified with an oxygen generator and crude temperature controls to keep its occupant alive. Dr. Samira Chen, former head of Earth's Extraterrestrial Intelligence Division, had been captured 3 Earth weeks ago during a routine diplomatic mission to the Jupiter outpost. She'd been the only survivor of the Kravax ambush, spared solely because Zax found her amusingly defiant, and wanted to study her reactions as Earth was destroyed. Samira sat perfectly still on the hard metallic bench that served as both chair and bed in her cell, watching the small viewscreen that had been deliberately installed to force her to witness her planet's destruction. Her face remained impressively impassive, betraying none of the anguish tearing through her. "You're not giving him what he wants," she whispered to herself. "Control your expressions. Remember your training." The door to the laboratory area hissed open, and Samira's attention shifted from the horrific images on the screen to the approaching footsteps, the distinctive 8-legged gait of a high-ranking Kravax officer. "Dr. Chen, I do hope you're enjoying the view," came the sickeningly familiar voice of Fleet Admiral Zax as he entered the laboratory. "I arranged it specially for you. Front row seats, as your species would say." Samira didn't respond, maintaining her stoic expression. "Still giving me the silent treatment? How disappointingly predictable." Zax sighed, his breath emanating as foul-smelling clouds through his ventilation slits. "I had hoped for more entertaining reactions from Earth's foremost expert on alien civilizations. Perhaps some wailing? Gnashing of teeth? Isn't that what humans do in times of great distress?" Samira finally turned to face him, her dark eyes meeting his compound ones with unflinching intensity. "What do you want, Admiral? Come to gloat? Gloat? Such a crude term for a victory celebration." Zax moved closer to the transparent barrier separating them. "I simply thought you might appreciate some company during this historic moment." "Historic?" Samira couldn't help but respond, her voice dripping with contempt. "There's nothing historic about yet another bully destroying something they don't understand. It's the oldest, most pathetic story in the universe." Zax's upper appendages twitched in what Samira had learned was a sign of irritation. "Good. You still don't grasp your species' insignificance, do you?" the Fleet Admiral hissed. "The Supreme Collective has conquered 17 galaxies. We've extinguished civilizations that make yours look like primitive microbes by comparison. Yet each one believed they were special, just as you do." Samira's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "And yet, here you are, seeking validation from a primitive microbe. Fascinating." The Fleet Admiral's exoskeleton flushed a deep crimson, a clear sign of anger. "I seek nothing from you. You merely came all the way down to the detention level, away from your bridge during a major operation, to talk to a prisoner who shouldn't matter," Samira interrupted. "Like I said. Fascinating." For a moment, Zax seemed genuinely flustered, his mandibles clicking rapidly without forming words. Then he regained his composure, his color returning to the normal grayish-blue of his species. "Your psychological tactics are transparent and ineffective, Dr. Chen. I came to inform you that your purpose has been fulfilled. Now that Earth is destroyed, you are no longer required for observation. The research division will begin their invasive studies tomorrow." Samira's expression didn't change, but her heart rate accelerated. She knew exactly what invasive studies meant. She'd seen the remains of the previous subjects. One last question before you go, Admiral, Samira said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. Zax paused, clearly intrigued despite himself. Yes? Why Earth? Why now? We've barely begun to explore our own solar system. We pose no real threat to the Supreme Collective. The Fleet Admiral's mandibles formed what Samira recognized as their version of a condescending smile. Because you were beginning to ask too many questions, Dr. Chen. Your extraterrestrial intelligence division was getting uncomfortably close to understanding things no primitive species should comprehend. Like what? Samira pressed, desperate to keep him talking, to learn anything that might be useful, though useful for what, she wasn't sure. There was no Earth to report back to anymore. Like the true nature of consciousness, Zax replied, surprising her with his candor. Your quantum physicists were on the verge of a discovery that took my species 3 millennia to achieve. The Supreme Collective cannot allow shortcuts in evolutionary development. It upsets the natural order. With that cryptic statement, the Fleet Admiral turned to leave. Oh, and Dr. Chen? He paused at the doorway. I've instructed the research division to keep you conscious throughout the procedures tomorrow. I find that subjects' neural patterns are so much more informative when they can fully experience the process. The door hissed shut behind him, leaving Samira alone with the view screen showing the final death throes of her home planet. Only when she was certain she was unobserved did Samira allow herself a small, grim smile. She reached into her mouth and detached a false molar, revealing a tiny device embedded within. Carefully, she pressed a specific sequence on the microscopic buttons. Message received and recorded, she whispered. Transmitting now. Back on the bridge, Fleet Admiral Zax was in the middle of dictating his official report when Tactical Officer Drex 53 interrupted with an urgent alert. Fleet Admiral! We're detecting an anomalous signal originating from within our ship. Zax's head swiveled with unnatural speed. Explain. It appears to be a compressed data packet, transmitted on a frequency our systems don't typically monitor. It bypassed our communications firewall completely. Destination? The Fleet Admiral demanded, rising from his command chair. Drex 53's appendages worked frantically across his console. Unknown, sir. The signal disappeared into a subspace frequency we cannot track. Origination point? Now! Zax roared, causing several junior officers to recoil. After a moment of tense silence, Drex 53 responded, his voice modulator pitched higher with stress. The detention level, Fleet Admiral. Specifically, the human prisoner's cell. Fleet Admiral Zax's compound eyes narrowed to pinpoints of rage. Secure the prisoner. Full containment protocols. And analyze that transmission. I want to know exactly what data was sent and where. As the bridge erupted into frantic activity, Vex 8 approached her superior cautiously. Fleet Admiral, what could a single human possibly? Never underestimate them. Zax hissed, his earlier mockery of humanity completely absent. Not individually. The collective species is primitive, yes, but individuals can be dangerously unpredictable. The Fleet Admiral's gaze returned to the view screen, where Earth was now little more than scattered debris and cooling magma. For the first time since the operation began, a flicker of unease passed through his consciousness. Send a secondary confirmation to the Supreme Collective, he ordered. Inform them that while Earth has been neutralized, we may have a security breach involving the human prisoner. As his orders were carried out, Zax continued to stare at the remains of Earth, suddenly less certain of his complete victory than he had been moments before. Mars Colony 1, hidden beneath the dusty red surface of the planet, was the largest and most advanced human settlement outside of Earth. Built inside a network of natural caverns and expanded through years of careful excavation, it housed nearly 10,000 people, scientists, engineers, military personnel, and their families. In the colony's strategic command center, General Haley Takahashi stood frozen before the main view screen, watching the real-time footage of Earth's destruction transmitted from their long-range observation satellites. Around her, her staff remained similarly stunned into silence, many openly weeping or holding onto each other for support. The unthinkable had happened. Earth was gone. General? The hesitant voice of her communications officer, Lieutenant Maxwell Park, finally broke the horrified silence. General, we're receiving a transmission. Takahashi blinked rapidly, forcing herself back to the present crisis. From who? The Kravax? No, ma'am. It's on the Chin protocol frequency. Every head in the command center snapped toward the lieutenant. Confirm. Takahashi ordered, her voice sharp with sudden hope and disbelief. Lieutenant Park's fingers flew across his console. Confirmed, General. It's definitely using Dr. Chen's personal encryption key. Signal origin it's coming from the Kravax flagship. She's alive, Takahashi whispered, then more firmly. She's alive! Get that transmission decoded now! Within minutes, the decoded message appeared on Lieutenant Park's screen. His eyes widened as he scanned the contents. General, it's everything. Fleet strength, ship schematics, weapons capabilities, biological weaknesses, and something called the true nature of consciousness. Dr. Chen must have gotten the Fleet Admiral himself to talk. Takahashi's expression hardened from grief to determined fury. Send the data to the Science Division immediately. And alert the Solar Defense Force. All personnel to battle stations. Battle stations? Her executive officer questioned. General, with respect, Earth is gone. We're 10,000 people against a fleet that just destroyed a planet of 8 billion. What possible, Lieutenant Colonel Romano? Takahashi cut him off, her voice cold and precise. Earth may be gone, but humanity is not. We have 27 off-world colonies and outposts across the solar system, and the Kravax don't know about most of them. Mars Colony 1 was built specifically for this contingency. She turned to address the entire command center. This is not the end. This is exactly the scenario we've been preparing for since first contact 15 years ago. Operation Phoenix is now in effect. A ripple of renewed purpose spread through the room as decades of secret preparation suddenly came into focus. Communications, send the Phoenix alert to all colonies and outposts. Science Division, I want analysis of Dr. Chen's data within the hour. I want to know every weakness the Kravax have. Military Division, prepare to deploy the quantum displacement weapons. As her staff scrambled to carry out her orders, General Takahashi returned her gaze to the view screen, which now showed only the scattered debris that had once been humanity's homeworld. They think they've won, she said quietly. The Fleet Admiral smiled as Earth burned. But he doesn't know about Mars. And that will be his undoing. In the adjacent science lab, Dr. Elias Wang, head of the Quantum Physics Division, was already poring over the data sent by Dr. Chen. His eyes grew wider with each passing moment as he processed the information about the true nature of consciousness that the Fleet Admiral had mentioned. This is it, he whispered to himself. This is what we've been missing. He turned to his team, excitement breaking through his grief. Get me the consciousness engine. Now. I think I know how to power it. As Mars Colony 1 mobilized beneath the red planet's surface, Fleet Admiral Zax continued his victory celebration, blissfully unaware that his greatest triumph was about to become his most catastrophic miscalculation. Fleet Admiral Zax paced the detention level corridor, his 8 segmented legs creating an anxious rhythm that echoed through the metallic hallway. The human prisoner's cell stood empty before him, its transparent barriers shattered and the oxygen generator still humming uselessly. Explain to me, he said, his voice dangerously quiet, how a single, unarmed human female managed to escape from a high-security detention cell on the flagship of the most advanced military force in 17 galaxies. The security chief, Crow 15, fidgeted nervously, his exoskeleton flushing a sickly yellow. Fleet Admiral, The preliminary investigation suggests she had help. Help? Zax whirled around, his mandibles clicking furiously. Are you suggesting treason among my crew? Not necessarily treason, sir. 1215 hastened to clarify. The security logs show that Lieutenant Nex 93 from Biological Research accessed this cell approximately 1 hour after your visit. When questioned, he insists he was responding to an official order from the command deck. An order I never gave. The Fleet Admiral hissed. Exactly, sir. The authorization code used was valid but appears to have been manufactured. It carried your unique signature pattern but wasn't generated by your neural interface. Zax's compound eyes narrowed to pinpoints of fury. The human. She somehow cloned my authorization. But how? And where is she now? At that moment, his personal communicator chimed with the distinctive tone reserved for direct messages from the Supreme Collective. With a final glare at the security chief, Zax accepted the transmission. The holographic face of Supreme Overseer Borzul materialized before him, the ancient Kravax's features arranged in an expression that even other Kravax found difficult to read. Fleet Admiral. The Supreme Overseer began, his voice crackling with subspace distortion. Your report on the Earth operation was incomplete. Zax straightened, every segment of his exoskeleton tensing. Supreme Overseer, I was about to send an updated. Silence. Borzul interrupted, each syllable precisely articulated. Our intelligence division intercepted a transmission from your flagship. A transmission containing classified information about our species. Information that only someone of your rank would possess. The Fleet Admiral's hearts, all 3 of them, seemed to freeze simultaneously. The human prisoner. She had a hidden transmitter. We're tracking her now and... Your incompetence is noted, Fleet Admiral. The Supreme Overseer continued as if Zax hadn't spoken. But there is a more immediate concern. The transmission was directed to the 4th planet in the Earth system. A planet your reconnaissance assured us was uninhabited. Zax's mind raced. Mars? Uninhabited? He'd personally reviewed the survey data. There had been primitive research outposts, yes, but nothing significant. Nothing that could possibly. We are detecting unusual energy signatures from beneath the planet's surface. Borzul continued. Energy signatures that match no known technology in our databases. You will investigate immediately. Yes, Supreme Overseer. I will dispatch scout ships at once and, you misunderstand, Fleet Admiral. You will lead this investigation personally. The Supreme Collective cannot afford another oversight. If these humans have technology unknown to us, it represents a Category 1 threat to collective security. With that, the transmission ended, leaving Zax staring at empty air, the implications of the Supreme Overseer's words sinking in like a cold blade between his carapace segments. Category 1 threat. The highest possible danger classification. The classification that justified immediate and total species extermination. If he failed again, it wouldn't just be his command at risk. It would be his life. Prepare my shuttle, he snapped at Crow 15. And locate that human prisoner. I want her found before I return from Mars. Dr. Samira Chen winced as Dr. Elias Wong removed the neural interface needles from her temples. The Kravax technology, hastily adapted for human physiology, had left angry red marks on her skin, but she showed no other signs of discomfort. Did you get what you needed? She asked, accepting a glass of water from one of the lab assistants. Dr. Wong nodded, his expression a mixture of awe and disbelief as he studied the data streaming across his monitors. Everything and more. The neural patterns we extracted from your interaction with the Fleet Admiral, they're the key we've been missing. The final piece of the consciousness engine equation. General Takahashi, who had been observing silently from the corner of the laboratory, stepped forward. In terms the rest of us can understand, Doctor? Wong looked up, a rare smile breaking across his normally serious face. In simple terms, General? The Kravax discovered that consciousness itself is a quantum phenomenon. It can be transferred, manipulated, even weaponized. But they've been using it all wrong, focusing on individual consciousness when the real power lies in collective consciousness. And this helps us how, exactly? Takahashi pressed, her patience wearing thin. It means, Samira interjected, understanding dawning on her face, that we can use the quantum displacement weapons in a way the Kravax never anticipated. Instead of just teleporting physical matter, we can teleport consciousness. Wang nodded enthusiastically. Precisely. The Fleet Admiral inadvertently confirmed what we've suspected for years. And with the technical specifications Dr. Chen acquired from their ship's database, we can calibrate the displacement field to target their specific neural patterns. Takahashi's eyebrows rose. You're suggesting we can, what? Teleport their minds? Not their minds, General. Wang clarified, his excitement making him speak faster than usual. Their consciousness. The awareness that makes them, them. We can displace it, separate it from their physical forms. And where exactly would we displace it to? Takahashi asked, a note of concern creeping into her voice. Wang and Chen exchanged a look that made the general distinctly uncomfortable. The consciousness engine, Samira finally replied. It was designed as a repository, capable of housing millions of individual consciousness patterns simultaneously. Let me get this straight, Takahashi said slowly. You want to rip the consciousness out of every Kravax in that fleet and store it in a computer? Not exactly a computer, General, Wang corrected. More like a quantum matrix that, skip the technical details. Takahashi interrupted. What happens to their bodies? They'll continue to function at a basic biological level, Samira explained. Heart, lungs, digestive system, all the autonomous functions. But there will be no one home, so to speak. No consciousness directing their actions. Takahashi considered this for a long moment, her expression unreadable. And this isn't killing them? Technically, no, Wang replied. Their consciousness would still exist, just elsewhere. It's more humane than conventional warfare. Humane, Takahashi repeated flatly. They just destroyed Earth, Doctor. 8 billion lives. Humane wasn't my first concern. Nevertheless, Samira interjected, this approach gives us options. Their consciousness could be returned to their bodies under the right circumstances. It's leverage, General, not just a weapon. Takahashi pinched the bridge of her nose, a gesture of stress she rarely allowed herself to display. How soon can the system be ready? With the data we have now? Wang consulted his tablet. 6 hours. Maybe 5 if we divert all available power to the lab. You have 3, Takahashi decided, turning toward the exit. Because according to our long-range sensors, the Kravax flagship just detached from their fleet and is heading straight for Mars. Fleet Admiral Zax stood on the command deck of his personal shuttle, watching the red planet grow larger in the view screen. Mars. Such an unimpressive world at first glance, barren, dusty, seemingly lifeless. Yet the energy readings emanating from beneath its surface told a different story. Scan complete, Fleet Admiral, reported the science officer, a specialized subspecies with enhanced sensory appendages. The energy signature is concentrated in a region known in human terminology as Vies Marineris. It appears to be coming from deep underground. Life signs? Zax demanded. Inconclusive at this range, sir. The unusual energy patterns are interfering with our bioscanners. We'll need to enter orbit for a more detailed analysis. The Fleet Admiral chittered in frustration. Something about this situation felt wrong. The humans had been thorough in hiding whatever was beneath the Martian surface, which suggested preparation. Extensive preparation. And that implied foreknowledge, something that should have been impossible given the secrecy surrounding the Supreme Collective's decision to eliminate Earth, unless Run a comparative analysis of the energy signature against all known technologies in our database," he ordered suddenly. "And include theoretical technologies as well." The science officer complied, her appendages moving rapidly across her console. After several moments, she looked up, her compound eyes widening in apparent alarm. "Fleet Admiral, there's a 89.7% match with theoretical quantum displacement technology." Zax felt his exoskeleton grow cold. "Quantum displacement? That's impossible. That technology is purely theoretical. Even our best scientists haven't successfully implemented it beyond laboratory scale. Nevertheless, sir, the energy signature is consistent with the theoretical models. If the humans have somehow developed functional quantum displacement technology," the implications hung unspoken in the recycled air of the command deck. "Quantum displacement could, in theory, teleport matter instantaneously across vast distances. As a weapon, it could remove enemy ships from existence, or relocate them into the heart of a star. It could turn planets inside out or scatter a fleet across galaxies. If the humans had mastered this technology, they'd posed a far greater threat than the Supreme Collective had ever imagined." "Prepare to broadcast on all frequencies," Zax decided. "I want to make contact before we enter orbit. And power up all defensive systems. If this is some kind of trap, Fleet Admiral," the tactical officer's urgent voice cut through his orders. "Multiple energy spikes detected on the planet's surface. They appear to be targeting our shuttle. Evasive maneuvers." Zax roared, but even as he gave the command, he knew it was too late. The energy readings were spiking exponentially, far faster than his shuttle could possibly react. "Incoming energy wave!" the tactical officer shouted, genuine fear evident in his voice, an emotion rarely displayed by the carefully engineered Kravax military casts. A blinding purple light engulfed the view screen, bathing the command deck in an otherworldly glow. Fleet Admiral Zax raised his upper appendages instinctively to shield his compound eyes, a futile gesture against whatever quantum force was about to tear his shuttle apart. But the expected destruction never came. Instead, an odd sensation washed over him, like being simultaneously everywhere and nowhere, present and absent, whole and disaggregated. For a disorienting moment, Zax felt as though he could perceive every molecule of his body separately, each one distinctly aware yet still part of the whole. And then, abruptly, nothing. General Takahashi watched the bank of monitors with military detachment as the purple energy wave from the consciousness engine engulfed the Kravax shuttle. The vessel itself remained intact, continuing its approach toward Mars on the same trajectory, but all communication from it had ceased the moment the quantum field made contact. "Status report," she demanded. Doctor. Wong studied his readings with intense concentration. "Consciousness displacement successful. The engine has captured 47 distinct Kravax neural patterns, including one that matches the complexity profile we would expect from a fleet admiral. And their bodies? Still functioning, according to our sensors. The shuttle's automated systems are maintaining its course. It will enter Mars orbit in approximately 20 minutes. Takahashi nodded, satisfied. "Prepare a boarding team. I want that shuttle secured and its occupants contained before the rest of their fleet realizes something is wrong." As her staff hurried to carry out her orders, she turned to Samira, who stood silent and thoughtful beside the consciousness engine, a massive quantum computer that now housed the displaced awareness of 47 Kravax officers. "You were right," Takahashi acknowledged quietly. "Your infiltration plan worked perfectly. Though I still don't know how you managed to get yourself captured so precisely." Samira's lips curved in a grim smile. "Let's just say I made myself impossible to ignore. The Kravax are predictable in their arrogance, especially Zax. I knew he wouldn't be able to resist keeping the head of Earth's extraterrestrial intelligence division as a trophy. And now his consciousness is our trophy," Takahashi observed, gesturing toward the engine. "Can they perceive anything in there?" "In theory, yes," Dr. Wong answered, joining their conversation. They exist in a simulated environment within the quantum matrix. One we control completely. Show me, Takahashi ordered. Wong hesitated. General, it's not exactly. That's an order, Doctor. I want to see what the Fleet Admiral is experiencing right now. With obvious reluctance, Wong configured one of the monitors to display a visual representation of the quantum consciousness environment. The screen flickered, then dissolved into an image that made even the hardened General Takahashi draw a sharp breath. Fleet Admiral Zax's consciousness existed in what appeared to be a perfect recreation of Earth. Not the Earth as it had been at the end, but Earth in all its blue and green glory. Forests, oceans, mountains, cities, all rendered in flawless detail. And everywhere, humans. Billions of humans, going about their lives, completely ignoring the confused and increasingly panicked Kravax Admiral in their midst. What is this? Takahashi asked, unable to hide her discomfort. Poetic justice, Samira replied softly. He's trapped in a simulation of the world he destroyed, surrounded by the species he deemed insignificant, unable to affect anything or communicate with anyone. Completely insignificant himself. Wong cleared his throat. We can adjust the parameters if you find this ethically problematic, General. Takahashi continued to watch the screen, where Zax was frantically trying, and failing, to interact with the simulated humans around him. After a long moment, she shook her head. No. Leave it. And prepare similar environments for the rest of the Kravax fleet once we expand the displacement field. You intend to proceed with the full operation then? Samira asked. Earth is gone, Dr. Chen, Takahashi replied, her voice hardening. But humanity survives, and we will not be victims. The Kravax came to exterminate us, believing themselves superior. Let them experience what true insignificance feels like. She turned away from the monitor, her focus returning to the immediate tactical situation. Once we've secured the Fleet Admiral's shuttle, we'll use it to approach the main fleet. With their command codes, we can get close enough to deploy the consciousness engine at full power. And then? Wong asked. And then we'll have a fleet of Kravax ships operated by bodies without consciousness. Bodies that will respond to simple commands given with the proper authorization codes. Codes we now possess. Samira's eyes widened as she understood the General's plan. You're going to take control of their entire fleet. Precisely, Takahashi confirmed. And then we're going to pay a visit to the Supreme Collective. In the quantum environment that now housed his consciousness, Fleet Admiral Zax experienced what humans might call a living nightmare. He existed in a perfect simulation of Earth, surrounded by the very species he had helped to destroy, yet completely unable to interact with them. Every attempt to communicate, to touch, to affect his surroundings in any way simply failed, as though he were a ghost, present but imperceptible. Worse, the simulation seemed designed to highlight everything he had dismissed about human civilization. The art that he had deemed primitive now surrounded him in galleries and public spaces, its beauty and complexity mocking his earlier disdain. The music he had considered simplistic noise now played constantly, its emotional resonance affecting him in ways he couldn't understand or control. The relationships between humans, their connections, their love, their community, all displayed in endless variation, demonstrating a depth of experience his species had engineered out of themselves generations ago in the name of efficiency. And throughout it all, a single phrase repeated in his consciousness at random intervals. The Fleet Admiral smiled as Earth burned. He didn't know about Mars. How long he existed in this state, Zax couldn't determine. Time itself seemed malleable in the simulation, sometimes crawling, sometimes racing forward in disorienting leaps. He had begun to believe this was his eternal punishment, to be forever trapped in a recreation of the world he had destroyed, when the environment suddenly shifted. The simulated Earth dissolved around him, replaced by a stark white space containing only two figures, himself and a human female he recognized with a jolt of alarm. Dr. Chen, he managed, his consciousness somehow reproducing the sensation of speaking despite having no physical body. "What have you done to me?" Samira Chen's simulated form smiled, the expression holding none of the fear or deference he was accustomed to seeing from lesser species. "Merely relocated your consciousness, Fleet Admiral. Your body is still intact, though currently unoccupied." "This is impossible," Zax insisted. "This technology doesn't exist. Not on this scale." "And yet here we are," Samira replied with maddening calm. "It seems humans aren't quite as primitive as you believed." The white environment rippled, and a new figure appeared, another human, this one wearing what Zax recognized as a military uniform. "Fleet Admiral Zax." The uniformed human addressed him formally. "I am General Haley Takahashi of the Mars Colony Defense Force. I've come to discuss terms." "Terms?" Zax would have laughed if the situation weren't so dire. "The Supreme Collective doesn't negotiate with lesser species. The Supreme Collective is about to experience the same consciousness displacement that you're currently enjoying," Takahashi informed him bluntly. "Your fleet is already under our control, and we're on our way to your homeworld as we speak." For the first time in his long military career, Fleet Admiral Zax felt something akin to genuine fear. That's not possible. The homeworld is protected by defenses designed to stop physical attacks," Samira interrupted. "Not quantum consciousness displacement. Your own arrogance will be your undoing, Admiral. You shared too much with your prisoner, believing her planet destroyed and her people extinct." "What do you want?" Zax finally asked, his projected consciousness somehow conveying the defeated slump of shoulders he no longer possessed. "Coexistence," Takahashi stated simply. "A fundamental restructuring of the Supreme Collective's approach to other species. And reparations for Earth." "The Collective will never agree," Zax insisted, though with less conviction than before. "They won't have a choice," Takahashi countered. "But you do. Cooperate with us, help us navigate Kravak's politics and culture, and your consciousness will eventually be returned to your body. Resist, and you'll spend eternity in simulation." The white environment began to fade around them, signaling the end of the communication. "Consider your options carefully, Fleet Admiral," Samira's voice echoed as her form dissolved. "You smiled as Earth burned. But Mars still stands. And humanity is far from finished." 3 standard months later, the Kravak's flagship returned to Mars orbit, its command deck now staffed by a mixed crew of humans and consciousness-restored Kravak's officers. At their center stood an unlikely pair, Dr. Samira Chen and Fleet Admiral Zax, the latter noticeably subdued compared to his former imperious self. On the main view screen, the Supreme Overseer's ancient face regarded them all with an expression that conveyed both resignation and a grudging respect. "The treaty has been ratified by the full collective," Borzul announced, each word clearly costing him considerable pride. "The human species is formally recognized as equals within collective space, with all associated rights and protections. The designated colony worlds have been approved for human settlement as partial reparation for Earth." "And the non-interference clause?" Samira pressed, unwilling to leave any detail unconfirmed. "Also ratified," the Supreme Overseer acknowledged. "The Collective will not interfere with human technological or cultural development, nor will we attempt to reverse engineer the quantum displacement technology without express permission and collaboration." General Takahashi, standing slightly behind Samira, gave a satisfied nod. "Then we have an agreement. The consciousness engine will be deactivated, and all remaining displaced Kravak's consciousness patterns will be restored to their bodies." As the transmission ended, Zax turned to Samira, his compound eyes studying her with newly developed humility. "You could have destroyed us completely," he observed quietly. "Yet you chose coexistence. Why?" Samira's expression softened slightly. "Because annihilation was your solution, Admiral, not ours. Humanity has always excelled at adaptation, at finding new paths forward even in the darkest circumstances. We lost Earth, yes, but we gained the stars. She gestured toward the viewscreen, which now displayed a map of the 17 galaxies under collective influence, with the newly designated human colony worlds highlighted. Besides, she added with a hint of the sharp humor Zax had come to recognize during their months of enforced collaboration. Someone needs to teach the collective how to appreciate art, music, and a good joke. You're all terribly serious, you know. Despite himself, Fleet Admiral Zax's mandibles clicked in what could almost be mistaken for a chuckle. Perhaps you're right, Dr. Chen. Perhaps you're right. As the flagship continued its orbit around Mars, the red planet that had saved humanity when Earth could not, Zax reflected on the extraordinary chain of events his arrogance had set in motion. He had smiled as Earth burned, dismissing humans as insignificant creatures unworthy of concern. He wasn't smiling anymore. Mars had taught him, had taught the entire Supreme Collective, a lesson they wouldn't soon forget: never underestimate a species fighting for survival. And never, ever assume you've seen all they have to offer. Humanity had lost their cradle, but in doing so, they had found their destiny among the stars. And the universe would never be the same again.